Hello again, everyone. This is Bill Holter. I'm here with Jim Sinclair. We're doing our second chat Q&A session from reader questions. We've got 2 or 3 current event topics we want to talk about at the end. But how are you doing today, Jim?
Say again. Didn't come through too well.
How are you doing today, Jim?
I'm absolutely fine, Bill. Thank you very much.
Okay, we got a first question from a reader. It appears that the ESF is the buyer of last resort for U.S. Treasuries. We know the U.S. will defend the U.S. dollar at all costs. My question is this. What do you feel is the extent of their ability, the ESF, to continue to purchase Treasuries? In addition, with regard to the ESF's ability to operate completely free of any oversight, are there any constraints or market forces or exchange mechanisms that can hinder their practice of monetization?
Well, the Exchange Stabilization Fund is a fund, Bill, to my understanding, set up who has 2 fund managers, if you will, the President and the Secretary of the Treasury, and here comes the fund line, and or their appointees. So I've long thought that the Exchange Stabilization Fund was an account at Goldman. That this is the means by which the plunge protection team, be it in bonds, be it in securities, has one trading arm. They have many trading arms. But I think what the reader really has in his mind is not the Exchange Stabilization Fund as much as a question, can any entity or group of entities continue to buy U.S. Treasuries without limit? My answer is yes, they can. However, when they do that, they're doing a thing called debt monetization. So if we got rid of the new and fancy names for things and got back to what we've known for the last 50 years, whenever governments purchase Treasuries, they inject money into the economies. But we've become a global economy. So what difference does it make whether the Cayman Islands or Belgium is the largest buyer of U.S. Treasuries as a beard for any of the many organizations and entities, funds, private and public, that would work to the government's best interest? The downside is the dollar. All can be hunky-dory for a while. Money can be sterilized, if you would, for a while. The money it's come in the recent rescues, TARP and all that business, really just went in to fill in the debits that were created by the dividends that went, the derivatives that went broke. Automatic sterilization, but inflation locked and loaded. So you can support the dollar to infinity, which is QE to infinity, which is debt monetization to infinity, which locks and loads whatever currencies are the major bonds being purchased for an explosion of inflation out of nowhere due to a loss of confidence of some kind, be it in general equities or in the currency itself.
Right, I agree with that, Jim. It's a monetary event. Reading between the lines for this reader, I think maybe what they're asking is the ESF, the powers that be, so to speak, are they omnipotent? And my answer to that would be no, I don't think they are omnipotent. I believe when all is said and done, because of the leverage, because of the derivatives outstanding, they will be overwhelmed.
I agree with you completely.
They can print to infinity. Yes, they can, but that will ultimately lock and load the inflation bazooka even that much further.
Well, I just was watching a public notice on TV, and it was very interesting because it had to do with a name of a drug I never heard of, a street drug. And it was a warning to a public that would buy that stuff that the first time you take it, you can drop dead. There is side effects to everything. And the side effect of unlimited printing of money to purchase unlimited amounts of sovereign bonds is this destruction of the fiat currency system. Total destruction.
It is and always has been.
Yep, and we are on that course now, and it seems that the loudest voices are always mainstream media, and the loudest voices speaking are honoring it as being a healthy and progressive way of bringing economies out of significant recessions and depressions, with which I wholly disagree.
Me too. Okay, second question. This regarding the move to cashless societies. The Fed's acolytes have been floating the idea of banning the use of cash. I can see big advantages to the government, and know it would be bad for the rest of us. What do you think is the likelihood of this happening, and what are the implications for gold and silver?
I think that there's another agenda behind this. Okay, I do think they want a cashless society. I'm not terribly sure we're not already almost there with the use of credit cards. But when QE was first announced, along with bail-in and now cashless, it seemed to me to be a psychological stimulant for people to offload cash and to not keep cash in savings accounts in banks, etc. So I think there's a very good possibility that as consumer demand is becoming less an engine of economic recovery, that the big publicity now on a cashless society is this: why keep cash? Because now I can get myself a new tractor, or a new car, or new furniture, or anything, or stuff. Cashless society would give government absolute tracking ability. It certainly does go along with Big Brother.
Right.
But I don't think, personally, that the nature, as we see now, of the public rebelling in this new kinds of political environments is one that would support a move to a cashless society.
What do you think the implications are for gold and silver?
New highs to unimaginable levels.
Okay, I agree with that. I had done written an article 2 or 3 weeks back and did an interview 2 or 3 weeks back regarding the move to banning cash, and I believe it goes somewhat hand in hand with their attempt to go toward negative rates, because that would more or less be penning capital into a corral that you can't exit. Because if they go with negative rates, the logical thing to do would be to start pulling out currency, pulling out cash, and just...
You know, there's a thought that the negative interest rates are basically for the same purpose, to get people to spend their money rather than put it into treasury items that they got to pay to have. I think it fits in with the same psyop, if you will, of bail-in in the banks and a cashless society. Anything they can do to get people to spend money. I think as much as there's a panic in politics, there's a panic in economics right now.
I think that the key phrase you just used there, the bail-in of the banks,
yeah,
that's so that all the capital is within the banking system, and that money will be available to bail in / steal.
Basically steal. It's already happened, and it's written into law. And with whatever comes next, it certainly is going to become a reality, as it already has in some instances.
The legislation's been put on the books.
It's on the books. It's actually been on the books since 1845 in British law, but it is now put in modern language.
And why would they put that into law if they weren't going to use it? That's
if you put it into law, you're going to use it. Why waste your time?
Exactly. Okay, next question. There seems to be a mystery and speculation that J.P. Morgan is doing the buying of silver, causing the shortages we've seen in the retail product. Where does that speculation come from? Is it private, the figures on who is buying from the mints?
I think that speculation is a market observation.
Yeah, I think that comes from Ted Butler.
Well, it's a market observation, but it's predictable. And, don't want to make people feel bad, but manipulation's never going to end. It's simply going to go to the long side, just like it did in the 70s.
Right.
So the assumption that the most money will be made in the shortest period of time by just those people who brought the price of gold down would only be a repeat of 1968 to March of 1980. It's going to happen again, and this time it's going to be put up instead of down, manipulated higher. And
the big moneyed interests will be the ones that are long and make the most.
They are the ones that the same guys that ripped us off on the downside are getting ready to rip us off on the upside.
Okay, the next question, is there a viable alternative to the current banking system? BitGold looks like it may work. And then they mention when Gaddafi tried this, he was extinguished. And I've got a second question that's similar. What about helicopter money as a last-ditch effort to keep the system going? How long will it work?
Well, let's go two first and one after it.
Okay.
That question is: will there be debt monetization? Will there be QE? It doesn't matter when we're in a global situation, global markets. What government buys what sovereign bonds? It's stoking the huge system itself. So the helicopter's up, the helicopter's dropping, and if they can find a bigger one and they feel it's necessary, they in fact will do just that. So I'd have to say that the answer to that is yes, it will continue. And that's the basic thesis for inflation that people can't understand who identify inflation with good business and deflation with awful business, which they basically have backwards. The Dent theory is a massive deflation.
Right.
But the key point forgotten is the helicopter flying over every nation, European, North American, my goodness, Asian. What do you think this is going to look like a year from today? Now, if I could remember the first question, I'd answer it.
Let me just interject on that. I think you mentioned the Harry Dent theory of deflation, which we agree with.
We do.
I think what he misses is that the currencies themselves are debt, and the currencies themselves will be, if you want to call it, deflated or evaporated. There's your hyperinflation.
Yes. And people will be looking at indexes like the USDX, scratching their heads, not understanding where dollar support came from. Just take a look at the other currencies.
Right, exactly. It depends on how quickly they evaporate. The first part of the question was, is there a viable alternative to the banking system? BitGold looks like it may work.
That is really a sage question. It's something you're thinking about. It's something I'm thinking about. And don't kid yourself. It's something major fortunes are thinking about. I may be referring to you. But what do you do? How do you protect yourself? When you put your money in the bank, the listeners know, or should know, that money is no longer yours. You've become the lowest category lender to that bank. So when you see comments like taxpayers will not have to pay for the sins of the banking system, the depositors are going to first. So that's off the list. In a cashless society or in a society where very recently some major banks have said no gold, no silver, no cash in safety deposit boxes.
Right.
Well, the first thing I thought about was how does a bank know what's in the box unless it's going down and taking a look?
Right.
And the second one is, okay, safety deposit boxes off the list. The next one is private depositories. Well, maybe they haven't gotten around to that yet, but, give them time, and they'll figure out there are, in fact, private depositories. So it comes down, to my mind, to be extraordinarily bullish for silver, very positive for gold. The only rub that you and I know that other people don't know is the mechanisms of the physical gold and silver market are something that you would expect to run into in the 1800s. It's hard to get delivery. It's hard to ship. Everybody wants everything signed. Everybody wants to make sure it's real. You can go down a list till it gets to the point of what do I do with my gold? The advent of the physical exchanges will be the creation of the mechanisms to modernize the precious metals market. As that occurs, the other factors of where do I put my money have to move very positively into the precious metals. But right now, we all know they're not that easy, okay? And that's the reason why paper gold had been so popular.
Right.
Paper gold market fails, which it will. We already see some EFTs shutting down because the demand for product is so high. The physical markets begin to take real shape. They're there now, but they're not terribly organized. Their rules and regulations are a little bit hard, and there are complications. For instance, if you trade in Russia, are you or are you not liable for the VAT tax? So there are things that need to be improved, but the motion I see out there, rather than looking at this as a photograph in time, is towards modernizing the physical market. And as that occurs, physical precious metals will become ever more important because there's one thing about them. They don't tell. Nobody knows. It's the only thing left in the world that has a modicum of privacy to it. And then there's pick out where in the world you feel safest, knowing that the gold you really own is the gold in your hand. But you don't want to keep all of that around. You never want to have more than you're willing to give up. You don't want to die for your gold.
Right.
Okay? You don't want to put up one hell of a good fight. But you don't really want to die for it. So the amount that we keep closest to us will be substantive, but not huge.
Right.
This is an equation that's working itself out and will, in the manner that you and I have just discussed it, become mature and erase the problem. As it erases the problem, it increases the price of physical metals until the physical metal market becomes the true mechanism for price determination. And the real price of gold is revealed.
Well, Jim, you actually answered the next question and a half. I'm going to go back just for a quickie on this. Is there a viable alternative to the current banking system? And simply say...
Oh, yes, that was in the question.
Yes, and I'm going to simply say...
There is in theory, but
right, and China
theory and practice are two different things.
Right, well, China's working on it.
In which case there's a very good possibility that theory and practice will become one.
Right, well, on the back of a napkin, I think I can show you that China has accumulated probably 20,000 tons of gold.
I'm sure you're right.
So if they were to revalue their gold higher, pick a number, 10-fold, 20-fold, I don't know, you pick the number, they would have a de facto ratio-backed currency.
They would. It would be the necklace that we've been talking about a lot.
Exactly.
It would be that which makes that currency attractive. Not convertible, but like a lady at a party, if she's wearing a Hope Diamond, believe me, everybody will be looking.
Right, exactly. And the ones that don't have jewelry on, or in other words, don't have
normal slugs.
Right, exactly. So you got to the question, the next question was, with the current state of affairs at COMEX, why does the world still recognize the drastically devalued price of gold, and how close are we finally to getting more true value?
simplicity. Okay, everybody loves simplicity. Nobody wants to be involved in anything that's complex. We've already discussed the fact that the physical market for metal is as complex as you can get. I mean, it should be somewhere on Clink Street in London back in the 1800s. But the paper gold market is simplistic. Nobody looks into whether or not, whether or not deliveries can be made. Harvey Organ does, and he probably knows it better than anybody else. But how many Harveys are there out there? And how many people understand the word Harvey's saying?
Right, exactly.
So the paper market, is as simple as it can be, and that's it. That's the attraction. There's no reality there. So as gold EFTs start shutting down because the demand for the gold is so high, which has already been said, that will be the first failure of a prospectus or contract in paper gold. So as you have a moving trend towards paper gold in any form whatsoever not functioning, paper gold in its major form, the COMEX, will not be looked at by serious money as performing according to the contract that are being bought and sold.
Right, which will ultimately create a run of holders of paper that represents gold saying, I want my gold. And there's your massive
absolutely, it absolutely will. And when they say no, and no is coming,
right,
and no has already happened, then you're going to have a significant increase in interest, volume, activity, and definition in the physical market for gold as a listed exchange product, which there's 9 of them now around the world.
And that will create the situation of no offer. And I say no offer, gold won't be offered in fiat currency terms until there's some type of currency that can be trusted.
This is the why, I believe, behind the long accumulation by super money of the physical metal, with short periods so far where there has been a significant lack of product.
Right.
But what you're defining is, look, the money that's been made now, Bill, makes us look like pikers back in the 50s and the 60s and the 70s. We thought we really hit the jackpot, when in truth we were talking about chiclets,
right,
compared to the not hundreds of millions, not billions, but rather trillions that have been made by central finance figures and in the dark finance figures, corrupt politicians and rulers.
And this time it's for all the money.
And I believe that's where the demand for physicals come from. So what you say is quite plausible, because when the physical market becomes the arbiter, the mechanism for price discovery, they're going to discover there's no physical. And the price will be whatever the next person wants to make it, but that won't be down.
Right. I agree.
It will be wherever anybody of strength wants to say it is, and it will be there.
Well, it'll cause the mother of all bank runs.
Well, at first when I said 50,000, I wish I didn't.
It might be laughably low.
And then I hoped it would go away. People might forget. But then other people started talking about it and higher.
Right.
So put it this way, I'm at least reprieved.
I personally don't think that you can put a number on it in dollar terms because, A, we don't know how much gold the U.S. has, and B, we have no idea how much money supply they're going to finally create. So it's an equation that you don't have any of the variables to plug a number in. So, pick a number.
Yeah, pick a number.
Is 50,000 ridiculously high? I think it may end up being ridiculously low.
If that number gets picked, that's the price.
Right, exactly.
Okay? So this is not, technical analysis, as you pointed out quite recently, is out the window
right.
when this happens. You either have it
or
you don't have it.
Exactly.
And in that equation is you go to sleep one night and the next morning it's entirely different.
Right.
All right? And the exchanges, the paper exchanges, if they still exist at that time, would be bankrupted by that development, completely unable. And then transparency would come, then the doors would open, and then all you'd see in the vaults is cobwebs.
Right, and you could theoretically have paper contracts go to zero because the gold's not there.
They will.
Gold is, I mean, you could have a day where gold goes up 200, 500, 1,000, whatever per ounce for real gold, yet the contracts drop 50% in value.
What's a bankrupt contract worth?
Right, exactly. It's worth
What's
zero.
A contract that says I'm going to deliver to you very specifically when and how much and
right.
fineness and all that kind of business? If it doesn't deliver, it's worth zero.
Exactly.
So here's where the school of what is it? There's a group, Free Gold. Free Gold is kind of like a religion, and like all religions, they kind of get a little wild in some of the things they say. However, they're right. The contract, paper contract, could be valueless, while gold could be $50,000 an ounce. And I'd go as far as to say that's exactly what would happen.
Right. Okay, that does it for reader questions. You and I have spoken in just about recent current events. You want to make a comment on what's going on in our political
It's become
scene?
Comical. I will tell you, though, I never could stand watching politicians, okay? And for a little period of time, it really got interesting with Trump until everybody tried to turn into Trump and didn't pull it off. So now it's like a hissy fit of kids in the 6th grade screaming, "Your mother's ugly and wears sneakers." It's become ignorant, embarrassing, a sign of the times, the kind of leadership that maybe overall we deserve. None. And it's embarrassed the parties, as it will continue to do when two final candidates come together, now used to the approach of politics being, your hands are too small. You don't have any hair. It's orange.
Right.
Okay? Who cares if the guy's a genius? Right? I'm sure that many of our prior presidents and great people were pretty ugly. I mean, Churchill, my God, he'd stop a clock. But that didn't mean he wasn't the smartest man in the world at that time.
Right. I just view it as if you want to call it the elites. I just wrote a piece this past Friday. In it, I stated that we do not have a two-party system. The candidates that have been put up are all, not all, but the final two that run are acceptable to the powers that be. They're acceptable to the string pullers, the guys who run the show. So you vote for A or you vote for B, you're voting for the same group.
Absolutely.
And I don't think
I'll
Trump's
go one step
part
further.
of this group, and I think that Trump has really put the elites into an outright panic.
Because he's got the following of people who have had enough and want to see the elite go away. Right, exactly. When you wipe out the middle class, you do have a very significant political development. Well, we've never seen anything. I mean, I know in my lifetime, and more than likely your lifetime too, this country's never seen anything like this. Nothing like this. And I'm old. This is a groundswell. Okay. This is the population of America showing their anger. Population around the world. All right. Okay? Yeah, exactly. Around the world. Look at Great Britain wanting to dump the euro. That's the same thing. Exactly the same thing. Right. Or even Catalonia in Spain wanting to break away from Spain. Yeah. So what you're looking at is a huge social shift, which is predictable when you have an enormous economic shift either occurring or about to occur.
Right.
So the political shift is there as well. I'll add one point to this. So with the nutty neocons, you wonder whether or not this is going to be the last elections we ever see.
Or maybe we won't see them.
That's what I mean.
Yeah, I mean, we might not have this one.
Well, that's reasonably possible. I mean, you and I and everybody listening, it's going to be a miracle if Trump is with us by the time of election.
Unfortunately, I think you're right.
Yeah.
Did you want to make a comment on? We had some pretty wild action in gold this past week.
Yes. Well, the action is the action of manipulation. If you just stand last week on its head, what do you have? The last 4 years. Okay. So what in my mind you see is short covering, late to realize that the direction is no longer down, but up and still in the hands of the same people. I mean, when you didn't have computers and really saw human bodies in the pits, you would know what firms were represented. Now it's all in computer data, which again, nobody wants to do any work, rarely looks at. Harvey does, but very few people, including myself from time to time, don't understand what Harvey's talking about.
Right.
He's very professorial, but also very correct. So the market in gold in the last week is the beginning of the unexpected, the beginning of price movements, which today in equities is considered normal. Down 600, up 600, down 800, up 500, nothing to worry about. Wait till you see what gold does. Silver does. And silver, as always, is gold on steroids. So when these markets finally realize that those who make the price, and have almost in every major market since the beginning of time, have changed their sights on what they're doing, having accumulated enough of the physical, then you're going to see price jumps in silver, which will make gold look a little bit like kindergarten.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think this past week, or past 2 or 3 weeks, you're right. I mean, we've covered the territory of the last 3 years.
There's no question about it. And there was a time, Bill, when there was a $10 limit on gold, and the limit had never occurred. Okay, a $10 limit on gold and a limit move had never occurred. Think about that compared to last week. If you
remember, Jim, I think it was January of last year, the COMEX put a $400 limit on gold.
I think, truth to be known, they wish they hadn't done that, but they were conservative.
You're mentioning you mentioned Harvey Organ and the work that he does, and I would mention that by rights, gold is overbought. We should have some type of a pullback. If you look at the COT numbers, you have massive shorts by the commercials, and it looks as if the specs are now more long. So by all rights, we should have some type of pullback.
Maybe. You should have a screaming multiple top recently.
Right,
and,
exactly.
And in the normal course of order, you should have a significant retraction of the recent price gain. However, I would be very careful in assuming that what we've seen for the past 4 years is what's out there now.
Right. It may not work any longer.
Just the same way the manipulators caught all of the longs on the way down and gave them a daily beating. The shorts make it the same thing, making technical analysis wonderful in retrospect, okay, but worthless in present time.
Well, and from a fundamental standpoint, what we were just talking about before, people saying, I want my gold for my paper contract. If you got that situation, then you could throw all the COT numbers, you could throw everything out the window, because there won't be a price. There won't be a fiat price for gold, as gold will go no offer.
what you've got to remember, Harvey's got to remember, and you and I have got to remember, is the data that makes up COT is the exact same data that has caused outrageous embarrassments in the LIBOR. Same people. So if it's the same people issuing a number where they got themselves caught fiddling like nobody's business, how do you know COT isn't a fiddle?
Right. How do you know the numbers are real?
They come from the biggest number of liars in the world.
Right.
So how can you bet the farm on COT? You can't.
Okay, got one last topic. Let you talk about it because we have had readers writing in asking for a comment on TRX.
Oh, I didn't think I'd get away without that. In truth, what you're watching, and I spent 6 hours this morning working on it, and the fact that I seem to have disappeared, I haven't. I've been in a hell of a battle. Is, in my opinion, in the final analysis, people will see it to be the largest modern attempt at claim jumping in the world, and maybe the biggest. There's more twists and turns in the life of TRX than there is in Sinclair novels or in 007. There is a battle going on. I intend to win the battle. But the win or lose on this battle is not for peanuts. It's elephants. And it is taking place right now. All of that, I think, will be extraordinarily obvious after the fact. I'm in the middle of it. So what I can say is, for the longs, wish me well, and for the shorts, go to hell.
Okay, let's wrap this up. I did want to mention, because we've gotten lots of questions regarding our new side site. We're going to have the same JS mindset. It's free to the public, and these chats, as a matter of fact, will become part of the premium site. People have been asking when, how much. We will have something up on the site very shortly. I know that it's being tested right now. It should be within the next, I'm thinking maybe a week or so, that will come up and be live. There will be a pre-registration period where there will be a discount for, I think, maybe 4 weeks, 6 weeks, something like that, while we get up and running. But the site is being tested. It has been built, and we're anxious to get rolling with it. So I thank you very much, Jim.
Number one, we're not stopping the free site, the educational site, the news site. It simply is not stopping, and probably will have more free media on it than it does right now. The premium may be more talking than writing, for all you know, but it will be an ongoing, continuing Q&A. So what it does is it replaces having to go to a conference. And as you've already seen, Bill has no trouble bringing up the most embarrassing question he possibly can. And I have no trouble answering it, or answering anything that I have any knowledge about, or telling you I don't. So I think that it's an improvement, and it's important for the listeners to know that I paid all the expenses for JS Mindset, God, now for over a decade. And if you added that up, it's $2 million. And with all respect, I've contributed as much as you should expect me to. You'll still get the free site as a contribution, but we'll obviously be putting a great deal of work into the premium site to give it value.
Well, Jim, just listening to you is worth the price of admission.
Oh, or a good laugh. depending
thanks
on what.
for your time, Jim. Thank you to our readers and listeners. Until next time, God bless.
God bless, Bill, and thank you very much, and thank you to our listeners.
Bye-bye.
Bye now.